if you vocalize yourself, I'll be able to pin you to the
Hey, hey, hey,
There you go.
hey. How's it going,
So
everyone?
much easier that way. It's like there's so many uh faces that trying to find each person is hard.
Right.
Spotlighted.
Oh,
Okay.
hey.
If you start to announce your panelists, then I'll start adding them.
Okay. The first one is Eric Alexandrakis.
What's up, brother?
Hey, and NitaneeParis.
Hello.
I like her background better.
Oh, thank you.
Mine is just normal.
Looks good, man.
That was awesome, by the way. So we're going to do more on sync. So Eric is a music supervisor and a composer, and Nittany is a composer and also an A&R rep. So I'm just going to go over Nittany's bio really quick, just briefly. She's the director of A&R at Artist Max, which is a Los Angeles-based company based around artist development and education. And it was founded by Ken Calais, he produced Fleetwood Mac, like Rumors and Tusk. He's also, I guess he produced Kobe Calais, who is also his daughter. Nittany is an award-winning songwriter. She's done tons of placements with like Netflix, MTV, VH1, Bravo, Hallmark Channel, a bunch of different things. She is also, what else is she? She's so many things. She's a multi-award winner for sure. She's worked with like Grammy-winning artists and composers and musicians. She's worked with contestants she's worked with contestants on The Voice and on Songland. And I think she's won the John Lennon Songwriting Award, as well as the Global Peace Award and a bunch of other things. And she's also she heads up the Malibu chapter of the Nashville Songwriters Association, among a bunch of other songwriting associations like Durango and Hawaii songwriting. And then Eric is music supervisor. He's a composer. He's a Grammy nominated musician, composer. And he's also done tons of placements for companies, too numerous for me to name. So I'm just gonna let them go and start telling you more about what they do. And then we'll see where this whole conversation goes. So why don't we start with you, Nittany?
Okay, so as Dale said, I am the director of A&R and partner at Artist Max with Ken Calais. And we started off as a company doing artist workshops. They were weekend intensive workshops that kind of expanded to 4-day or 5-day workshops. And we would hold those at the Village Studios in West LA. And what we did was we brought in world-class mentors to work with the artists on choreography and vocal coaching and production, image consultants, and songwriting. And in fact, that's how I got involved with it. Ken asked me to teach one of the songwriting workshops. So we basically would give the artists a kind of a well-rounded basic exposure to the things that they need to do to be successful in the music business. And then at some point, Ken decided that he'd like to have a home somewhere in LA where we could continue that education and work with the artists that we like, the artists that we find in the workshop. So we leased a studio in Westlake Village. It's Revolver Recordings, and we share that space with Michael Blue, who is also a co-producer of Colby Calais, of her first album. And so now we work with artists in the studio, and we continue the same thing, but lately we've been focused more on recording. After the pandemic happened, we made some shifts and changes to the way we do it, but but the best part of it is that, you know, we really are in a position to help artists, particularly young artists who maybe are new to LA and they really need an advocate to kind of look out for them and make sure that, you know, they're learning and also not being taken advantage of, and just kind of being there. It feels like a natural fit for me because I really just I really love working with them. When I first started in the music business, I heard a lot of stories about experiences that artists had when they got here, whether it was maybe they were taken advantage of by a producer or you know, other things that happen. And I felt, you know, like I wanted to do something. So I really enjoyed being part of this company because that gives me the chance to do it. We also have, Ken and some other partners have purchased the record plant in Sausalito, which is a historic, iconic studio where he recorded Fleetwood Mac's Rumors and Tusk and some other albums. And so that studio is being refurbished now, and maybe over the next year it'll be ready to reopen as a major studio. So we've been involved with both of those things, doing live broadcasts, and we have stages in the studio here and up there. So we have the opportunity for artists to perform at showcases and broadcast that worldwide with one of our partners. So that's kind of what I'm doing with Artist Max. And then did you want me to continue talking more about my work as a writer?
Why don't we let Eric introduce himself, and then we'll start getting into that.
Great.
Hi all, I am a musician and a music supervisor. My company, My Own Music, works with all kinds of major brands, Squarespace, Kate Spade, the networks, the major labels, Live Nation, et cetera, et cetera. As an artist, I've done all kinds of high-profile collabs with John Malkovich and everyone from Malkovich to Yoko Ono to Duran Duran. And I'm involved in film production as well. A film concept I came up with, shortlisted at Cannes. It was a tribute to David Lynch's characters, most iconic characters, starring John Malkovich playing, you know, all of his crazy characters. That was with Squarespace. And, you know, just creating and clearing and creating and clearing. And the Grammy nomination was definitely a highlight. You know, I had all these things lined up, and then COVID came and basically killed everything. So it's interesting how that is, because, you know, a lot of people think you get a nomination or even a Grammy for that, either one, and then they think the world's going to flock to them. But the reality is you have to use it as a tool, just like everything else, and make your opportunities. So, but it's definitely a door that leads to a lot of things and a lot of credibility, extra credibility. And because a lot of artists, you know, they tend to kind of get sick and tired of the Academy and say things, you know, like, well, you know, I'm not going to be judged by a contest. You know, you shouldn't look at it that way. You should look at it as like, you know, a job interview. If you have an opportunity to do a job interview for something better and bigger, you go for it. So, you know, I'm all about controlling as much as you can of your content and being really smart with understanding rights. And fake it till you make it doesn't work. You know, people can see through that stuff. So I also consult a lot of artists and labels and how to set up and pitch themselves to supervisors and that sort of thing. So that's basically in a nutshell.
And so when was your nomination?
2019.
Oh, okay. That's the same year I won.
Yeah,
So
I remember.
So I totally get the 2020 being the big year, and then.
Well, the good thing is it's like a PhD or a master's or a college degree or any degree.
Right.
You'll always be able to use it, and that's what it's for. You milk the hell out of it any way you can. I mean, I got discounts on rental cars because of it. You know, I have no shame in saying that. I don't care. You know, that's what it's for. You use it, whatever you can do to take it.
That's good advice. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, do it, man.
So why don't we bring Nitanee back in the conversation? So yeah, let's talk about songwriting, and you know, and then touch on like Music Sync and you know, let's talk about all of this stuff.
Well, I actually started writing songs. I mean, I wrote songs when I was a kid, but I didn't get into the music business till just about 10 years ago. I was in the corporate world for a long time, and suddenly about 10 years ago, my last position was doing change management and communications for a finance and technology division at Bank of America. I know it sounds really boring, but I did get the chance to do a lot of writing, but it was more like corporate things and project things. And anyway, I did some soul searching one weekend as I was about to take this new position that would have kept me working on London time zone and East Coast and LA. And I thought, what am I doing? I don't even really want to be doing this. I would go into meetings and write songs. And anyway, so I decided to leave, and I started studying songwriting at UCLA. And I never looked back. Since then, I knew I had a lot of catching up to do. I was coming into this a little bit later than most of the people I work with. So I took classes. I went back to UCLA and studied music business and songwriting. And I did workshops with everybody who was teaching here in Nashville. And part of my strategy was to enter competitions and try to build my reputation that way, to help with finding the right collaborators. And so I did a lot of that in the beginning, especially, and then started writing. So right now I work with artists. I write for artist projects through the studio. I write for artists that are brought to me by managers or lawyers, and they ask me to work with artists for development. And then I also write for Sync. And I usually try to tie it together, because why not have multiple revenue streams from one song, from one product? So I'll usually, if I'm writing for an artist project, we'll try to figure out where it can fit in the Sync world at the same time. I always say think Sync when you're writing, because, you know, why not? And as you know, having a placement for an artist can really help with launching their career. And especially, I love when the timing works out right, that it's just when they're ready to release it. And so I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years. My first placement was in a film called Muffin Top, A Love Story. And I know it's just what you think, but it was a really fun comedy that was the largest all-female cast, and the soundtrack was all-female cast songwriters and composers. And so I was really proud to be part of it. And I had 2 songs in that very great placements, and I was really proud of it. So that's where I got started with writing for Sync. And now I do it all the time. In fact, I do a lot of quick turnaround custom projects where I'll receive information and then stay up all night. And I have teams of producers that I work with and artists, different places around the world. So I'll reach out to people in different time zones and, you know, get a few projects going, and so that I can deliver the next day. It sounds kind of crazy, but that's my favorite part of it, is working on projects like that.
And so when you say think Sync, what does that entail?
Well, okay, so I always have to clarify this, because I think a lot of people, especially people maybe in Nashville, they think when you say Sync, writing for Sync, they think it means something generic and something that's so broad that it loses its meaning, but it's really not that. I think, you know, Eric would definitely, I'm sure, attest to this, that, you know, music supervisors want something that's still very authentic, even if it is written for Sync. So when I say think Sync, I mean to write something that's authentic for the artist, that's going to be meaningful for their project and help their career, but something that can also easily be placed in a TV show or an advertising project or a film.
And is that like thematically, like are you thinking that way? And when you're writing those, you're not thinking of anything in specifically, like for a specific show, right? If it's not, you're just writing for the artist.
Well, it always starts off as an artist project, but if I have several briefs that I'm working on or that I know are coming up, or certain agencies that I work with where the same kind of theme comes up over and over again, we'll discuss and see if it will fit into those areas. But I'm really careful not to force anything into a Sync project if it's not authentic for the artist. but it's always good to, I think, to have it in mind. And I mean, with pop artists though, I mean, there's so much pop music that's used in TV especially, that it's really not too hard to do that, you know. So thematically, for sure. And then, you know, if I have a brief and I know what the energy is or the emotion they're looking for, and we connect on one of those subjects, then it makes it really easy to do that. But the artist project is always the most important part. Everything else is secondary, but I just like when they cross over. So you can use it for both things.
And so Eric, I know that you work with a lot of corporate accounts, and so what's your experience, you know, with that, with placing music there, and you know, either as a music supervisor or as a composer?
So two things first. One is that artists need to get into the reality of the headspace. So what does that mean? So if this is like your lifelong ambition and you've been dreaming about music and doing music all your life and digesting everything and learning instruments and writing and writing and writing, a lot of artists don't realize this, but artists have to accept that this is how you're wired. It's not a choice to be creative or to want to write all the time. It's like, you know, people's sexual preferences. You're born how you're born. You're wired the way you're wired. There have been studies done which show that really creative people have like extra nerve endings in certain parts of their brain, so they're more susceptible and more sensitive to visual and audio stimuli. So if your mother or your grandmother's always saying, oh, you know, you can do it as a hobby and get a real job, and no, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. This is what you are. And because if you don't, you will die slowly. Take it from me, I've had cancer twice. I'm not willing to do anything that I don't want to do just because society thinks I should or shouldn't. So that's really the first step. Second step is it's really, you have to, you know, a lot of times when I remember when I was in grad school, I would go to these NARIS panels in Miami, and you know, there's like, well, how do you get in a movie, and or how do you get in an ad? And some guy who owned a studio is like, well, come to my studio, spend $5,000, and go place it. It's like, well, how do you do that? You know, they would tell you all these kind of great advertisements and ways to, you know, somehow them get your business, but you don't know how to do it. So I mean, what it comes down to is networking and networking and networking. You know, I set everything up from Miami. I live in Colorado right now, and I go to LA for like day trips and things. So I set everything up on the East Coast with the West Coast when I was building everything. So, you know, you have to network, you have to get together with people, but you can also do a lot of things over the phone and email and things like that. You just have to be committed to it. It's not a quick fix. You know, there are artists that I consult and who think, you know, in 6 months they'll get a Cadillac commercial. You may not. It may take a year, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years. But I mean, along that road, you learn how you do it and you network, and you might find another direction that you didn't consider that goes over there, you know, to this direction. I always wanted to be the lead singer in a band when I was growing up. And then when I got cancer, I recorded these albums, and a music supervisor at Viacom heard them, and they were all done on a borrowed cassette 4-track, all avant-garde pop and noise, and just weird stuff that was never mastered. And they licensed 200 tracks. Wow. Never mastered. Borrowed cassette recorder, borrowed 4-track cassette. I still get, you know, they still get used now. I still get them on my ASCAP statements. So the other thing is that there is a place for everything. It's just you have to find that niche. But the reality is something that is more universally appealing has more of a potential to get used in different places. Now, with me, so Kate Spade would come to me and say, all right, we want a Bjork track for this thing we're doing. I say, all right. So I reach out to Bjork's manager and I give them the quote, and she's like, no, I want this. And then Kate Spade's like, yeah, we can't afford that. Find me Maggie Rogers. So I go to RCA and I say, you know, we have this budget. What do you have for this? And they're like, it's a little high. So then I negotiate for them. And maybe Kate Spade or whoever says yes. And, or maybe they say, you know, since you're also a composer or producer, can you make me a copycat track? So there's also that side. Most supervisors can't do that or don't do that, but I have that advantage. But basically, writing wise, you know, I'm not exact. I've never been categorizable genre wise in anything. It's, you know, and maybe it's a good thing. It's a, you know, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing sometimes. But if they say, here are the keywords, this is the tempo, this is the vibe, then I'll just sit down and I'll do it exactly the way they want. I mean, they're paying, so, you know, you might as well do it. But that sort of thing comes after several years of networking, them trusting you, you building a resume. I mean, before my nomination, I had a lot of high profile stuff done. And I often wonder with my nomination if it would have really mattered if I hadn't had that stuff. Because what a nomination and a win does is that it amplifies what you've done before. So if you have a lot of stuff before, it amplifies. Same thing when you contact, say, these major companies. You know, they want to see something on you. They don't want to take a chance. So it takes time to really gain that trust and that understanding. And then, but, you know, writing wise, it can be all over the board. I mean, I've had stuff where it's like, copy Nelly's It's Getting Hot in Here for a major film. I'm like, copy? Can't copy. So I mocked it. So I made my own track. I basically mocked that track and they loved it. This film loved it. Problem is, and they were going to use it. So then 3 days later, they said, well, the director wants to change the vibe of the scene. He wants to use a metal track, make it a little more, you know, I don't know, metal. So I lost that, you know, so you have to be willing to understand that you have to be really diverse, because that was a hip hop track and I'm not a hip hop artist, but I faked it well enough, surprisingly, to the point where they wanted it. But you know, that's a different thing, because if you want to be able to basically fill every need, you have to study every style. I'm classically trained, so you have to study every style and really be on top of that. If you want to just go for one niche, that's, you know, adult contemporary pop, then you have to focus on that, and you have to seek out brands and watch their ads and see which ads, brands use that type of music and which shows use that type of music, and go on IMDb Pro and set yourself up as a company rather than an artist. Because the last thing a supervisor wants to hear is, hey, I'm an artist, check out my awesome music. I mean, I get like 50 of those a week. It drives me absolutely mad. You have to set yourself up as a company and present yourself credibly. And that's one of the most important steps. But I don't know if I answered the question or went off at a tangent, but
I forgot what the question was, but I'm pretty sure you answered it.
okay, cool.
So and so Nitanee, do you get into situations where you're asked to specifically write a particular type of song? Like, are you given in that same context, like keywords and things like that?
Yes, yeah, I do a lot of writing for briefs. So I'll receive briefs for a lot for advertising that comes in, and you know, those are my favorite. But they usually don't have a lot of time to work on them. But yeah, they'll give the parameters. They'll usually say what kind of song they're looking for, what the emotion is, oftentimes what lyrics they're looking for, sometimes specific lyrics or specific keywords, but and also there's usually some references, production references, so you can get an idea of the music. So I usually have a lot of information to go from.
And so and once again, like, how did you, and this is a question to both of you, how did you get your starts? Like, what was it? What was that one thing that really made this happen? These people requesting your work.
I would say that the most important thing, and the thing I always say to artists, and Eric touched on this earlier, is that the most important thing that you can do after building your craft is build your community and your network. And I mean, that's so important. And my first music conference that I went to, I met so many people. I started hosting parties and events and after parties and showcases, and I do some charity showcases at music events. And so I found a way to really start building my community fast. And I owe everything to those events, like, for example, the ASCAP Expo, the Taxi Road Rally, the West Coast Songwriters, and NSAI events. And so I went there and I met people and slowly, build up my network of people, of music supervisors that I can pitch to directly, of other collaborators that already had a lot more success than I did. And I think that's the most important thing. And then also collaborating every day, because that's one of the best ways to do both, build your craft and your community. If you can do that successfully and be really good at that. That's what I did. Those are the steps that I took to kind of have a large network of people that I can work with professionally.
The Viacom thing was really the beginning. I never even thought of licensing or placement or anything like that. And then, but before that, also John Taylor from Duran Duran is credited with discovering me. So I was able to add that to my bio, and then my company was representing Duran Duran, and then was representing other major bands, and was hooking up with EMI and Universal through all of that, and Sony and all the major labels, all the major indies, and then that led to Live Nation and NBC and CBS. So it was definitely a building process. Problem was I realized I was doing more paperwork than creating. I didn't get into it for pushing papers, and I do all my contracts. I only use lawyers when I have to sue people. So I negotiate everything. I even write my own contracts. I have a master's in music business.
Okay.
So, it's a building process. It takes time, but I'm obsessed with music. I'm obsessed. I can't turn it off. It's there all the time. If I'm not listening to music, I'm watching a film. I'm not watching a film, I'm looking at a book about Bauhaus, the art school. And the thing for artists, I think, to understand is if you also digest all those other types of creative mediums, your music becomes better, becomes more interesting. And it opens up interest in here. I mean, I love film music. I've always loved film music. But, one thing that most people don't know is that, the industry wants you to cut your teeth on independent films before you try to get Star Wars, for example. I love independent films because there's like this freedom to basically just experiment and try different things. And, I have this problem, I guess you can say, where, like I said before, I don't really fit anywhere, but I'm willing to try things that are kind of all over the place and not necessarily so commercial. And I think you have to take that chance to challenge yourself. Because that's one thing I have a problem with music today, is that everything is so quantized, so pitch corrected, so algorithmically perfect that I listen to it and I just don't feel like there's a challenge to any of it. Like most of us, not all of us, we grew up listening to artists and because of players, because of this style. I mean, I remember growing up and hearing a song and saying, hey, that's Bill Berry from REM on drums, I'll bet you, and it was. Right. Or that's Mick Karn on bass, or, now it's, it's the new standard. But like my last album, which came out in August, I did it all on a 16 track, and everything was played in first or second takes. Some songs are just first takes. And I did that because, that's what I fell in love with when I was growing up, the players and the skill and the different things, and every track's been licensed in some form to some media thing. But you may or may not hear it in some major brand, but I don't care. I had to get it out of my system. It's just this thing that you absolutely have to do. So like that was part of my growing process to get into what I've been doing, because I would take these chances, I would try these things, and from my side. So that was a big part of the growing process. It wasn't just networking for me. If I could network, but if I didn't have that little something, to get their interest. I'm just another person looking for an opportunity. So you really have to find your voice and network the hell out of yourself.
And now, how about are you big on collaborating, or are you more of a one producer, one man guy?
I don't like collaborating. I'm kind of a control freak. I look at collaboration in a way, in the kind of way of like, if it raises something for me, if it adds something to me, to my work, I'll do it. So really, I only collaborate with high profile people. But I have a lot of friends, independent friends, in our circles, for example, who ask me to play on their stuff. And I say, yeah, I'll play on your stuff. And I just do it.
Right.
So I like that. That's fun, because I don't like to take direction. I don't like to do things again. It's kind of like, you want me to play on it? I'd love for you to play on it. Do whatever you want. All right, I'm sending it to you. This is what you get. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. But that's it. I don't have the patience for that.
Right.
Some may think it's a bit snobby, but the reality is I'm at a point where, I can't, especially with all the COVID stuff going on and how the industry is just going upside down. I really have to focus, like, what's gonna give me more opportunity and what's gonna pay the bills.
Right.
Because I have a lot of friends I play on their stuff, but I don't charge them because they're friends. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'll play on. I love doing that. But to sit down and collaborate and write, I can't do that.
That's not your thing.
No, I mean, I have this revolving supergroup project I've been sitting on for years, and I've done tracks with Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries. Before she passed away, we were very close friends, and guys from like The Cure and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and the Smiths and stuff. I basically invite people that I've admired over the years, and writing with them is like my childhood coming to life.
Yeah.
So like that is one thing, but writing with kind of an unknown independent, it sounds horrible, I know, but I don't care. I'm sorry. It just doesn't bring me any joy. It's just, I have to be on it. It's my job. It's 24 hours. You have a family, you have this.
Right. So now,
but occasionally I must say, I do see somebody who really kind of blows my mind, but usually they're very unusual, and I'll do something. I'll give them maybe something to remix or something cool.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah.
And so, Nitanee, in terms of like your collaboration, and you're more in the pop world. Would that be correct to say?
Well, I do many different genres. I do hip hop and country and folk and Americana, but mostly pop. I mean, the largest percentage of my work is pop, but I do.
Right. And so, and do you will obviously work with a lot of independent artists, or no?
Yes, I work with independent artists and also artists that are signed with labels, and a couple of writers that have had quite a bit of success. So I've had the experience of collaborating with people at all different levels. Plus I mentor children, 13. I have a Malibu teen writers group that I work with. So I have the experience of working with a lot of different people. And I'm currently writing an article about these experiences that I've had collaborating, because there's so many different challenges that come up. It's really very fascinating to me what the obstacles that come up in a session. And I think it applies to any creative endeavor. When you're collaborating with somebody else, you have to be open and be willing to share. And I think it's a real skill that you have to develop. And so it's kind of interesting having all of these different challenges come up, figuring out how do we overcome that, and then being able to still get something really good on the other end. Yeah, I find it fascinating. I love collaboration.
It's cool. It's definitely. I'm sorry. I was just.
No.
Gonna say, it's definitely cool. I have a lot of friends who are independents who tend to collaborate with, and I'm not saying you do this, of course, but who tend to just be like, yeah, I'll collaborate with you. Yeah, I'll collaborate with you. You have to be selective. You can't just collaborate with everyone in your circle and hope something hits. You have to focus on what you have to focus on what your goal is, You have to have a monthly goal. You have to have a 6-month goal. You have to have a yearly goal, and you have to stick to it, because music is a lifelong emotional and financial investment. You're never done. Only when you're dead, you're done. There's always something new to try. There's always something new to learn, but you have to be organized and you have to have a schedule, and you can't just, I'll try this, I'll try that. I was on Clubhouse in a film room about a month ago, and I never went back because I was such a turnoff. But one guy's like, okay, I'm a jack of all trades. I'm lazy. I basically try something, and if it doesn't work in a month, I try something else. How do you write a screenplay? And the person on the panel was very polite. I literally would have been like, dude, it's never going to happen. You cannot approach this type of thing in that fashion. You have to have an incremental plan. You have to be selective. You have to be focused, committed, crazy, insane, a masochist, and etc. So that's all. I mean, we're all like that in some ways, because you have to be crazy to be, the music industry, because the music industry is an insane asylum. It's
I love it myself.
Well, it's the only industry that actively works to destroy itself. I mean, it's, devaluing and all this stuff. But like, when you find your niche, though, then, you can enjoy it to some degree, But if you're just kind of like feeling around and, oh, this is good, you're just going to go around in circles and circles, and you're not going to get anywhere.
And so Nitanee, when you collaborate with, say, someone new, like you're just meeting them, and what is your process in that whole creative process in trying to develop a song?
Well, I wanted to say I agree with Eric that it's really important to be selective about, especially since there's only so much time in the day. For somebody like me, I do usually 2 sessions almost every day, and sometimes 3 when I'm crazy. But I think that there's so much to be gained from writing with a new artist, because there's so many great gems that come out of that, like ideas that I never would have found, never would have excavated on my own. And so I really enjoy that. And I think as a collaborator, I think it's the responsibility of each of us to bring out the best creativity in our writing partners. Mm-hmm. So it's our responsibility and to really make them feel comfortable and like they can trust you enough to share their ideas and to really kind of go deep, and that takes some work, so I think that my process when writing with somebody new is finding out who they are and what they're looking to do. If it's an artist project, if they have an idea of what their single or EP they're working on is going to look like, and then finding out who they are and what's important to them. We'll often have a conversation about what's going on in their life, and I always say to honor the emotion that comes in the room. So if somebody comes in and they just lost somebody in their family, or which has happened to me. I had some artists here from Hawaii, actually the same group that's here right now. We're doing a little retreat right now. They came in and we were going to write an ad song. We had a brief that was really hot and we had to get something done, but they came here and they had a loss in their family, and they couldn't be there because they had just come to LA to work for a week. And we wrote a song about that feeling of wanting to be with a loved one when you can't be with them. So it turned out to be a great song that got placed and won awards. And so I think it's just really important to honor the emotion and really listen. I think being a good collaborator is being a great listener. You have to really listen to what the other person is saying and what they want, and to be open when they share ideas, even if I don't necessarily agree with the idea at first, or I think, oh, I don't like that at all. Just be willing to kind of go along with it and see where it takes you, because you never know what might come out of it. You might go in a completely different direction. So I think there's a lot of value in that. You get a perspective from a 13-year-old that you can't get from somebody my age, or even a very successful writer. you know, somebody who's been in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I mean, they might not have the same ideas and the same experiences. So I think there's a real value and something to be gained from all of it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I think we should open this up to some questions for our experts. If there are any questions. I don't know if there are. Stefan?
I was ready, just in case I had questions. I think what Eric said about the music industry being self-destructive or a very hard place to be pairs well with Dale's statement of like, yeah, but I love it because I'm with you. That like, man, the number of times I've just been punched and kicked, like just on a digital standpoint, and yeah, I'm like, let's do it again tomorrow. Like let's keep doing this because there isn't anything else I want to do this bad. They're like, man, it is brutal, but like we're doing it.
Yeah, once you find your niche, then you can enjoy it more, you know. That's the good thing about it, you know. I mean, there's always those hiccups and people you want to kind of kick in the butt every day, every other day.
I wasn't thinking butt, but I was like face.
Yeah, face, yeah. But you know, you find something that works for you and you're happy and you're doing what you want to be doing, and you know, it's great.
I mean, I think that's really key in terms of, you know, at least for myself, is that I have a lot of different handles. Like I do a bunch of different things, but you know, music has always been like the thing that's always been there for me. That's been
Well, you've proved it. I mean, it's right behind you. You've proven it. You know, your efforts. You know, you did it. You know, your efforts have panned out and proven yourself. You know, so
yeah. You know, and going back to like what both of you guys were saying in terms of like the networking and meeting people, you know, that's something that I tell people a lot. You know, people that I'm giving advice to is if there's something you want to do, go hang around those people who are doing it.
mm-hmm.
You know, because that's the way you're gonna find an end to doing that. Don't hang around the people who are not successful at doing it, but you know, hang around those people who are actually doing it and are in a position where you want to be, because that's gonna be how most likely you're gonna get to that
and
level.
and sometimes it's hard to differentiate those types of people, because I remember when I first started out, I was interning with a guy who he was like the hot artist manager of the city at the time, and he ended up being the most manipulative, horrible person. And you know, it gets to the point where it's like, does he know he's lying or is it me? You know, so you will encounter, unfortunately, people who will take advantage of you. But the thing is, you might have to allow that a little bit to get the experience and to get to a place you need to get to move to the next level.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have an ex-attorney that I, from just a few years ago, who turned out to be a horrible dud. You know, so even after 26, 27 years in the music business, I still run into these people and trust the wrong person once in a while. So you really have to be on the defensive as much as you can and protect yourself at every cost.
I had a question for Dale as well. I'll keep asking questions until someone in the audience asks a question. But we talked earlier about the number of commas in your title, where you're wearing 10, 15 hats. If you could be financially stable and only do one thing, like, and it could even be a niche within a niche within a niche, what would you only do?
I would live on an island.
Doing what on that island?
Doing nothing. No.
Come hang out with me.
Yeah.
Background.
Right. Exactly. You know, I think it would probably be music. I would probably, you know, I mean, I do love acting.
I'm
But
gonna push you harder. What niche within music? Are you writing it? You playing it? You're performing it? Like,
Bootlegging it.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm creating the next Napster. No, I think I'm creating it. I'm creating music. I'm also performing it. You know, that in that whole thing. I've always myself personally, I like the spotlight. Not to be a jerk, but that's kind of where I like to reside. Um, I have no problem being behind, you know, everything, but I like being out there. I like being in front of people. I like the interaction of people, and I like creating, hopefully, things that other people enjoy besides myself. So yeah,
I enjoy your stuff.
thanks, Eric. So yeah, so that you guys have anything else?
Ramson, you want to unmute and ask your question?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just I thought it was we were supposed to put in the chat. So my
Oh,
question is uh do like what was the most like important change in perspective or attitude that you had toward your music um that you feel like is the most important like change that allowed you to achieve your success, if that makes any sense.
Well,
who's that?
I can say for me, it was letting go. Because when you're starting off, this is my art and this is my expression, and but then I was like, wait a minute, what do they want? And they're paying what? Okay, so letting go, but you still have to hold on to your individuality. Um, I have an album coming out that's silence, an hour and 10 minutes of silence. No one's going to like that. No one's going to listen to it. No one's going to probably understand the concept, what it is. I don't care. So you have to have like an I don't care attitude. This is what I'm doing. This is what I like. But then to make it also another professional side of it, to make money from, syncs and things, if that's what you want to do, you have to be willing to be like, okay, you want me to do didgeridoo hip hop with a Russian yodeling cat. Okay, what does it pay? What is it this? If it doesn't pay what you want to be paid, walk away, you know? But you have to kind of look at the value of the project as opposed to where you are in your career. Because you get one placement in a show, you put that on all your socials, everybody sees it, your credibility goes up. You can use that in your next presentation to try to get another show. So you have to balance those things out and be willing to let go of the emotional.
Got it.
How about
Cool.
you, Nitane?
I think the most important thing for me was when, and I sort of touched on this earlier, is when I realized that it takes time. Writing, learning how to write and produce and create and then pitch and play songs takes a lot of time. It's not going to happen as fast as anybody wants it to. And when I first started, I really wanted everything right away. And I was so eager. And I thought, if I just keep working, it's going to happen. I had to kind of realize that, just keep building my catalog and just keep working and learning how to write with different people. And I think that, and then the other part of it is going back to community, when I realized that it's not just about creating the music, but also about bringing value to the music community and thinking about, I remember my son recently did his college applications, and the question everybody asked was, what will you bring to the campus? And I thought about that. It's the same with music. You have to stop and think about, what do you bring to the songwriting or the music community that's gonna make it a better place to live and work? What do you bring? And I think, because I think that way, and I always think about what value do I bring to my professional relationships, not what somebody can do for me, but what I can bring to them.
Exactly.
I think that has helped me gain respect and build partnerships, and that's the most important part of this business, I think, is those relationships.
Cool. Thank you. Thank both of you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I guess in regarding the sync, like what is like more on the technical side, like when you're approaching a music supervisor initially, like as an artist who is like very green, let's just say that. What are the basic core components for presentation? Like what are they looking for? Like what's the time cutoff? Like what like you mean if even if you're just coming in blindly and you're not like looking at some type of assignment like oh we're looking for a fast-paced song blah 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 blah, you don't have that, but that's just the technical aspects, like what almost like a visual resume, what are they looking for, what's the time cutoff, what kind of format is it in, all that.
And so you're talking about just like just randomly sending your music somewhere?
No, I mean like like I said, like contacting a music supervisor in a
Mhm.
genre that appeals to you as an artist. Like you have jingles and stuff that like hypothetically jingles that you feel that would be great for a company,
I
and
see.
then that type of overview.
So music supervisors love to sit on panels and say, "Yeah, send me your stuff. Send me this. Send me." I can tell you right now, supervisors don't like to hear from artists. It's a dirty little secret
Okay.
because artists, and of course put myself in this, we are our own worst enemy. So if you want to approach supervisors, you should approach them as a company rather than an artist looking for an opportunity. Because if you approach as a company, it'll be more of a credible presentation. You could do it as a publisher or as a label or something, which means you need to have a website. It could just be a splash page. Um, you need to have socials, Facebook, etc., to match all that so that it looks real. As far as deadlines and things, everybody has different deadlines. Everybody likes different formats. So when you want to reach out, you say, "Hi, my name is so and so. I have this label that specializes in this type of genre or these genres, and I've noticed that your show used a similar song. Um, uh, are you currently looking for anything for your show?" And look on IMDb, see what they're working on, see if it's current. Sometimes it's not current. You could say, I know IMDb Pro is not current all the time, but just checking and see if you're still working on this show because I saw this and that. That's how you have to do it. And then usually, one thing that's really good for music delivery is disco. You guys know disco? It's a great, great thing. Um, so then, they may blow you off, which usually they do. But check in with them every month, you know, uh, and then they'll tell you what it is they're looking for, and you can ask them what format, or just send them a disco where they can stream and download.
What exactly is a disco?
So disco is it's like it's a music delivery site. It's like SoundCloud, but not like SoundCloud. It's great because you can control a lot more things. You get better stats. There's no advertising. Once you finish listening to what you want to listen to, you don't suddenly hear some EDM thing that comes from some other person's page. You're just like, what's going on? Am I going crazy? So you can do special pages and downloads and streams and all that stuff. It's really great. It's really good. It's like $10 a month for the basic thing. It's disco.ac.
Okay.
And
I see
it's
that
kind of
in
big.
the chat too.
Yeah, it's become kind of, there it is. Yeah, it's become kind of a standard,
Mhm.
So, but a lot of the good thing is, it's good to pass around also Spotify links and Apple links, because if they like you or like what they hear, then they might put it in a playlist and it'll keep reiterating in their head, and then maybe someday they'll use it anyway. So,
Mhm. Okay.
that's my
So,
perspective.
are we running out of
You're
time?
you're basically out of time unless someone has something pressing where they're just like, oh my, if I don't get to ask this, like, oof.
Anybody can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook and wherever, you can send questions, send stuff.
Yeah. Did you put did we all put our information in the chat?
Yeah, I put my
Okay.
stuff up there.
Yeah. Great.
Cool.
So, well, thank you both. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you joining me.
Gail.
Nice talking to all of you.
Really great to meet you all.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, man.
Everybody get in touch with them, follow them on social media. We've made their links available in a few places, but we'll keep trying to spread them. I thank all the speakers for joining us. It was awesome.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.